Hey YouTube, Zerlorn here. Today we got a pretty exciting announcement. There's the first big balance change since all of the new heroes have come out, and some of the changes are things that have probably been needed. As the game has settled a little bit after the new heroes, there's some stuff that's come out as being a little too strong, and some of these changes look like they're going to be pretty good. I had the opportunity to scrim a few games on the new patch with all these changes, and some of the changes are maybe bringing some old boogeymen to light. But we'll get into it in the video, and we're gonna go through line by line and take a look at all the changes, and I'll let you know kind of how they are affecting the game. So first, we've got Rejuve only heals the person hitting the crystal. This I think is probably a good change, but doesn't really fix the problems that I personally have with Rejuve. If you stop by the stream at all, had a lot of discussions. Right now, it feels like the game kind of follows a script. That script is at 17 minutes or so, somewhere between 17 and 20 minutes. A team will get a pick, and then 6-man go to Rejuve, fight the mid-boss, and then basically just wins the game. This mitigates the cleanliness of that fight a little bit, but doesn't really change the core issues with the Rejuve. It is just too strong. Soul Rebirth got removed from the game, and giving 3 Soul Rebirth got removed from the game, and giving 3 Soul Rebirths to the team who gets the mid-boss is crazy, plus all the stats that you get is insanity. It is probably too strong right now, and I don't think that this is a meaningful change. Dying to a non-player when there is no bounty or assist now increases the respawn timer of that death by 10 seconds. I think this is pretty much just a change for when you had those early lane fights where you killed both and were left at like 10% HP and people would just kill themselves to the Guardian. Probably still works for the first 5 minutes of the game, but doesn't really work for like 5 to 8 minutes. Honestly, the 10-second timer might be enough to kind of kill it outright. Seems like a fine change. Don't really have a problem with that. Patron first death time is now a constant 12 seconds instead of being variable between 8 and 15. Frankly, I don't know why it was ever variable. I'm glad that it's constant 12. It seems super weird that that was a variable time ever. Alright, now we got character changes. These are all the, I think, base game changes, and then we've just got character and item changes. So we'll start with Abrams. Abrams' Infernal Resilience damage regeneration increased from 12% to 13%. Abrams was already really strong. A 1% change on Infernal Resilience to make him stronger probably isn't going to change much. Maybe makes him a little... I think Billy is maybe a little bit better than Abrams right now. Maybe makes him more a compelling pick than Billy. But Billy got buffs too, so probably not. Bebop. Weapon range growth per boon increased from 1.2 to 1.5, so he gets a little bit longer range. Bullet damage growth per boon increased from 0.13 to 0.14, a little more damage. Exploding uppercut cooldown reduced from 21 seconds to 19 seconds, with the cooldown reduction point giving it 11 seconds of cooldown instead of 10.5. Hyper beam cooldown from 120 to 105. I don't know. I think that this is probably good for Bebop. Bebop is still in like a really weird spot where you can't really kill people by yourself as Bebop very easily right now. And I don't know that this gives him enough damage to solo kill people when he gets a big hook. You kind of need a teammate. Most people can survive like the gun Bebop. I think Bomb Bebop is generally pretty poor in most competitive situations. No one really plays Bomb Bebop competitive. I think this might bring Bebop up in pick rate a little bit, but I think the biggest reason that this might increase Bebop's pick rate is because there's some pretty big holiday nerfs down here, but I suppose we'll have to see. I think we played one game of Bebop tonight, and the Bebop didn't seem like it was crazy overpowered or anything. It was more or less the same, I think. Billy got a base health from 730 to 740, and Rising Ram cooldown decreased from 33 seconds to 30 seconds. I think Billy is already really strong. I also think Billy early game was already really strong. His gun is like nuts crazy, like basically Viper's gun, but with more ammo, and low, like the same DPS, but with less fire rate, so you don't go through ammo as fast, so it's like super strong. So this seems like I mean, Billy was already really strong. I think this was probably an unnecessary buff. I think Billy might be bad in lower ranked MM perhaps, but in competitive Billy is really strong. A lot of priority picks in Deadlock Night Shift this week, and I'm not sure why he needed buffs, but Couple buffs for Billy, the goat. Calico got some probably much needed buffs. Calico's been sort of out of favor for a while. Bloom Bomb's tier 3 gets +2 from +2 to +3, so an extra bomb is like a decent chunk of damage, especially if you're going like the Spirit one-shot Calico build. So that's a pretty noticeable increase in damage. Leaping / melee damage scaling increased from 1.3 to 1.5, and this heal spirit scaling is to 1.4, so a little bit increase in scaling. Ava tier 3 increased from -15 seconds cooldown to 20 seconds cooldown, and 25 health regen to 35. Ava is still way worse. You can't just like run all of the boxes on the map in 10 seconds, but some nice changes to Ava there. And Return to Shadows cooldown reduced from 110 to 100 seconds. So this is a good change for Calico. We might see a little bit more of. I think the burst potential for the Spirit one-shot build is still there, and we'll probably, like, these changes will probably make it a little bit more competitive. Doorman. I think Doorman is bad, but I think Doorman's a lane bully that just doesn't do that much late game. He has good CC, but just doesn't like do enough damage in my opinion. And I don't think these changes really address that. So Call Bell explosion damage reduced, so it's worse in the lane, but the spirit scaling is a little bit better, so it's like a little better late game, but worse early game. So he's less of a lane bully, which was the thing that he was good at, and I don't know, he just doesn't do that much damage in the late game, I don't think. I don't know if that fixes that. This is kind of a good change though. Hotel guest now teleports the target back to the beginning of the hotel if they fall into the void. If you were unaware, if you fell into the void, you could instantly get out of the hotel. And a lot of times what people would do, especially later on in the game, if you got pulled into the doorman ult, they would just jump into the void, take the damage because the damage doesn't matter that much, especially if you're like a frontliner, and just get back into the fight in like 2 seconds, and it was like totally useless. So I think this is a good change to at least make people do the thing, or like if they don't do the thing, they still have to be in the hotel for most of the duration. So I think this is a good change. Drifter, health gain per boon reduced from 41 to 39. I think Drifter has been terrorizing a lot of low elo lobbies especially, so I think some of these nerfs are probably a good thing. Weapon fall off start distance reduced from 24 meters to 22 meters. Drifter has like a ridiculously long fall off range for how good his gun is and how much damage it does. And reduces weapon damage gain per boon reduced from 0.55 to 0.52, so a little bit less damage per level. Blood Scent T3 bonus amp damage reduced from 11% to 10%. This already got nerfed from a 13 to 11, so it gets nerfed again. I mean, 10% damage amp is just so much. I feel like it's hard not to still invest in that with 3 points. Rend now causes you to briefly float in the air during the cast time. I have no idea what that even looks like, so let's go look really quick. Let's swap over to... where is Drifter? So when we cast one, let's turn off cooldowns. Honestly, I think that seems like it just makes the ability a little bit easier and more intuitive. Seems like a fine change, I guess. Don't think that that really nerfs him at all. Probably not really a nerf or a buff, just kind of a quality of life change. Grey Talon. So Grey Talon got picked a couple of times in Deadlock Night Shift, and I think Grey Talon is pretty strong right now, especially in competitive play. For a couple of reasons. Bird's really strong, and he just does a lot of damage from really far away. Super good procer of Spirit Burn, and honestly just throws like crazy DPS without needing a ton of money. Grey Talon, bullet damage growth based on spirit power increase, so you build spirit, you get gun damage, which is a Grey Talon specific thing, which is, you know, a little bit buffed. Spirit Snare curse duration increased from 2 seconds to 2.25 seconds. Spirit Snare is like reasonably strong ability. Buffs to it are always interesting because, I don't know, at some point maybe it'll be like really strong. Currently I just like is fine. But the tier 2 is, so your overall duration is going to be less, but also now it applies minus 15% bullet res for 10 seconds. That's a long time for the bullet res debuff, which is pretty good. And tier 3 changed from Grey Talon deals 30% more bullet damage to enemies hit by Spirit Snare for 10 seconds to plus 1 second curse duration and plus 1.5. So it actually is like maybe pretty compelling to get to tier 3 on Spirit Snare, especially if you're playing like a Spirit backline, like kind of support-ish Grey Talon. Support is not the right word, but like not hyper carry, take all the farm Grey Talon. Holiday got some much needed nerfs. The base bullet damage reduced from 26 to 22. Holiday's gun is really strong at level 1, and a little bit of a nerf to that will definitely make that feel a little bit less oppressive in lane. And then the bullet damage growth is increased, so maybe Gun Holiday is a little bit stronger, because you'll catch up to this eventually. It'll take a while though. Powder Keg displacement duration reduced from 1 second to 0.4 seconds. So let's take a look at that really quickly. So I guess that's a little different. Maybe you can act faster. That's probably a good thing. And the base damage is reduced from 90 to 80. Seems like a good change. Tier 2 is less damage. So at tier 2, you're doing 145 instead of 165. So 20 less damage. That's a pretty big nerf. And at 145... I mean, you're going to proc Tank Buster, but... just because of the spirit bonus. But actually it might be a little harder to proc Tank Buster. It might be, I probably won't matter that much, but good nerf for lane where Holiday is really strong, and the scaling's increased. So I think this nerfs Holiday's lane while kind of maintaining her doing damage later in the game. T3 charges reduced from +3 to +2, and it also increases the displacement duration by 0.4 seconds. So it kind of gets back to where it was before, but you get one less charge. Seems like good changes overall. Holiday's lane was probably one of the strongest in the game, and this I think brings it back a little bit back into the orbit of like a normal character. Probably still a strong laner. Have to test out. I don't think anyone played Holiday today at all, so I will be curious to see how those changes end up affecting the character. In Furnace, Flame Dash DPS reduced from 33 to 30, and the tier 2 is from +37 DPS to +35, so you can't just like press 2 and run at people with 2 points and kind of kill them in lane. Probably a good change. And also Dash and Furnace was a little silly and probably brings it a little bit of a nerf. Frost Grenade cooldown for Kelvin reduced from 22 seconds to 20 seconds. Sure, I guess. I don't know that Kelvin needed any buffs. Kelvin's been really strong for a while. Probably it's fine. I don't know. Kelvin's still really strong. This makes him a little bit better. Mina Rake heal spirit scaling increased from 1 to 1.5, so a big increase in spirit scaling on the Rake. I think this is the biggest change. Love Bite's buildup now takes 1 less shot, and the proc damage is increased from 45 to 55. With increased scaling, and then the ult Nox Nostra's cooldown is reduced from 130 seconds to 115 seconds. Mina got some big buffs. We played Mina tonight to see how it did. I'd have to pull up the numbers. I think it was okay. I wasn't like crazy impressed. It seemed okay. Mina is still weird where if nobody looks at Mina, she can do infinite damage. But if anybody looks at Mina, she is just so paper where like the damage it takes too long for her to do the damage. And she's so paper that I think Mina is still in sort of a weird spot. We'll see if maybe this increases her win rate a couple percent or something, but Mina's been pretty bad for a while. Like one of the lowest win rate on average heroes. Mirage Fire Scarabs tier 3 increased from +60 max health steal to +70. Don't know how many people are maxing Scarabs quickly. Mirage is, I think, low-key pretty strong. And buffing him might make more people pick him, so cool. I think Mirage is pretty good. You should pick Mirage. Good character. Mow and Krill combo cast range reduced from 5 meters to 4.75 meters. This probably doesn't matter. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people, like, man, in Night Shift, Europe was, like, first picking Mow and Krill, and man, did that character look useless, except for, like, one game. I'm not sure, like, what the obsession in comp with Mow and Krill is right now, but this character does not look that strong. I don't think has very good stats in competitive. Not sure what the deal is there. But sure, nerf playlist Moankrill. I think that character is eh. Page, defend and fight barrier spirit power, increase scaling, scaling increase from 1.4 to 1.6. Great. Page does a pretty interesting, like has a pretty interesting role, but is really squishy. More barrier, good. The support character, or the support players will like this, so that's cool. Paradox bullet damage growth reduced from 0.275 to 0.27. 0.005 bullet damage growth difference. I feel like that does fuck all, honestly. But cool. A little bit of a paradox mentioned in patch. I'm certainly going to keep playing Paradox. The character is crazy strong. I don't think this changes anything. 7, move speed reduced from 6.9 to 6.8. Incoming crit resistance reduced from minus 35% to minus 25%. 7's head hitbox is like crazy big. He takes a little less headshot hit damage. But that's been reduced, which is great. Power Surge Tier 3 Spirit Scaling reduced from 0.34 to 0.3. Stormcloud DPS Spirit Scaling reduced from 0.65 to 0.6. And the initial radius reduced from 12 meters to 10 meters. I think 7's like fine. It's hard to nerf 7 out of the game. The fact that Power Surge lets you farm ridiculously fast and also has built-in Spirit Resist Shred, which is kind of a hard stat to come by the way, in the game. There's not as much, like, there's a lot of bullet resist shred, but there's not nearly as much spirit resist shred. Makes him kind of like it's hard to nerf 7 to the point where he's unplayable. He might get less, he's probably going to be a little less good in MM Shiv buffs, yeah, I don't know. Shiv was pretty strong quietly in the background, I think, and these buffs are spooky. So we played Shiv tonight. Shiv was very strong. I think Shiv might be a bit menacing this patch. So Serrated Knives Tier 3 increase from plus 37 damage and plus 6.5 bleed DPS to plus 40 damage and plus 7 bleed DPS. I think that like the knife Shiv build is kind of going to be the direction, like knife and bloodletting. With your, ult max. But Slice and Dice Tier 3 max CD reduction from -6 to -8, so you can get more Slice and Dices. Bloodletting cooldown reduced from 25 to 20 seconds, and the damage deferral is increased from 25 to 30%, and you're clearing 45% of the damage with your Tier 3 Bloodletting. It seems pretty strong. Really hard to kill, does a lot of damage. Shiv is, I think, potentially going to be a bit of back on the menu, a little bit scary for MM games again, but we'll see. Sinclair Vexing Bolt radius reduced from 3.5 to 3.25. Great. Sinclair sucks to play against, and this makes it a little less annoying. Spectral Assistant base damage reduced. Great. Spirit scaling increased. Basically, Sinclair's lane is just so obnoxiously not fun to play into. A lot of it because of Vexing Bolt and Spectral Assistant, so these nerfs are great. T3 gives you 60% fire rate instead of 45%. Sure, fine. Rabbit Hex Tier 3 is increased from 5% to 7% damage amp. Sure, fine. Audience participation cooldown is reduced. It's already so low, that's kind of spooky. And duration is increased to 12 seconds. I think this fixes some of the problems with Sinclair, where he is one of the least fun characters in the game to lane against, but like struggles in the late game unless you're playing very specific builds to make an impact on the game. And so hopefully this will help with that a little bit. Victor, one of the new characters, also we had Mina and Billy up there, but Victor's health per boon reduced. I think Victor is still really strong after these changes. I played a couple of games of Victor. He's just sort of like the late game inevitable character. Jumpstart recharge timer increased from 3 seconds to 8 seconds. Aura of Suffering reduced from 9 meters to 8 meters, and cooldown increased from 1 to 2.5 seconds. This is sort of mitigated by Rapid Recharge. It probably makes Rapid Recharge a required item on Victor, and this is just annoying. And the health per boon is probably good to tone him down a little bit, but like Victor is still like the inevitable, like you get to 30 minutes and he is Thanos if he's been farming. So I don't think that that changes any of that. Vindicta, Stake no longer has a smaller tether range than capture range, so it no longer pulls you in, that seems nice. And the duration is reduced. Cool. Vindicta is terrible to play against, mostly because of Stake. It slows you more, but it's got a reduced duration and doesn't pull you in. And then they're buffing flight duration from 12 to 13, buffing the spirit damage in flight from 9 to 10, with the points giving you tier 2 from plus 6 seconds duration to plus 7 seconds duration, and tier 3 11 spirit damage to 14, making flight a little bit better, making Stake a little bit worse. Bro Familiar debuff duration reduced. Great. Bro Familiar is really unfun in lane to play against. Made the spirit scaling worse. The bleed per second increase from 2.15 to 2.7, so they made it better up front and worse later on. And tier 2 is you get less cooldown reduction, which is probably a good thing. So Vindicta, hopefully moving away from the like Stake pro debuff demon with like double Stake being super unfun to play against. Vindicta is like one of my team's basically perma bans, just honestly because Vindicta is just so unfun to play against. I think that helps. Maybe this helps some of those changes. Viscous has some big changes. The alt fire base damage is reduced from 63 to 48, which is great. Viscous right click in lane, especially off rip, did way too much damage, and this I think brings it back in line with some of the other alt fires. And the growth has been increased, so we'll catch up to this around like the mid game, late game. And then potentially it'll do more damage later on, which is nice, because I think it falls off pretty hard. Viper fall off minimum range increased from 13 meters to 15 meters, so we got some buffs for Viper. The Screwjob Dagger Spirit scaling increased from 0.74 to 1, better scalings. I think making Spirit Viper potentially playable, could play around with that, might be interesting. Cooldown reduced. Tier 3 increased from 1 second slow duration to 2 seconds. Lethal Venom cooldown reduced from 26 seconds to 20 seconds. And Petrifying Bola range increased from 6 meters to 8 meters. Cooldown reduced from 110 seconds to 90 seconds. So Spirit Viper might be a little bit back on the menu. Hard to say. Spirit Viper was kind of a weird off meta pick before. Probably doesn't bring it into like anything crazy. But some nice changes. Viper is pretty weak right now. I don't know that I want Viper to be strong again though, so we'll see. Warden got base sprint speed reduction from 2.5 to 2. Alk Flask, less damage at tier 2. Great. This is such an unfun ability to play against in lane. Has like crazy range for no reason. And the last stand spirit scaling reduced from 1.6 to 1.45. Warden has like recently fallen out of favor a little bit, it feels like. Despite being still very strong, so I'm glad to see some nerfs. Especially to like Spirit Ult Warden, just not fun to play against. Alright, we got the items. Lots of cool item changes, honestly. Lots of good stuff. Weakening headshot bullet resistance reduction increased from -12 to -13%. This item is crazy good, and the debuff duration is increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Yeah, this item is like crazy good if you can hit headshots with any consistency. I've been building this item on Paradox. It's so strong for 1600. And then it builds into crippling headshot, which is like one of the better 6400s on Paradox, like in the game, and on a lot of characters in the game. It's just so much resist shred, and the heal reduction, great item. Backstabber cooldown increased from 4 to 5, and the damage per second reduced from 20 to 17. I think this is a good change. Backstabber is like really obnoxious early on in the game, and you can apply it like super often. Probably brings it back down to a more manageable level. Long range now grants 4% fall off range. Long range is already really good. I don't know how much of a buff 4% fall off range is, but I mean, pretty good. It's probably pretty good to buy on Paradox. Sharpshooter sprint speed increased from 1 to 1.5. Sure. Blood Tribute, Spirit Resistance increased from 8% to 10%, and active move speed increased from 2 to 2.25. Valve can keep trying to get me to buy this item. I will not. I just don't like it very much. Might be good. It's probably almost overpowered, but until it's like crazy busted, I'm not buying that item. Headhunter bonus damage boon scaling increased from 3 to 4. Headhunter was already low-key pretty good. Buffs to Headhunter are great. Gonna buy it on Paradox. Seems good. Shadow Weave, Invis sprint speed increase from +2 to +5. That seems like so much sprint speed. I do just kind of want to buy it really quick and see how fast you move.
I will happily sell you this, as you don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Shadow Weave, like, now basically gives you haze invisibility movement speed-wise. It's like 7 meters per second overall sprint speed. Like, if you buy this and, like, have fortitude and, like, enduring speed, you are cruising. Like, 18 meters per second, 19, 20? Yeah, you are cruising. Interesting. I don't know if people are going to buy that item or not. It's really expensive and, like, probably only good on certain characters. Maybe it's playable on Wraith again. I could see it being played on Wraith in, like, some pub lobbies or something. Probably not going to get any comp play, though. Why not just buy Veilwalker, honestly. Capacitor now grants 8% fire rate. Cool. And the projectile speed is increased by 20%. Capacitor is really hard to hit before, so it's probably good that it increased the projectile speed a little bit. Debuff duration for crippling headshot is even longer. This item was already nuts, and now it's even nutser. Not a word, but, you know. Crazy item. Buy this item. Ricochet no longer targets zipline targets, which is great because it was really annoying if you were coming into a fight and you got targeted on a zipline from Ricochet. Spellslinger buff duration increased from 14 to 18. It makes it easier to keep up those Spellslinger stacks and probably makes the item a little bit better on some of the characters that didn't really use it that often. Probably pretty good on Victor, honestly. It's a lot of... what are the stats on Spellslinger? Yeah, it's like 60% fire rate, minus 60% reload time. It's pretty good at max with some decent CDR. Pretty good, pretty good. It's a lot of fire rate. Probably some characters will really like that buff. Rebuttal now no longer grants plus 50% melee damage on successful parry, now grants plus 30% bonus damage on successful parry, affects all damage similar to the base parry amplification. So instead of like big melee return on rebuttal, you get 30% bonus damage. So like if you're not a melee character, now it's maybe makes more sense to like actually buy rebuttal for melee characters because you can get the bonus damage. Still a niche counter item, doesn't really change it that much, but it brings it in line for what you're doing normally with parrying. Weapon shielding damage requirement reduced from 200 to 175. Not a lot of people buy weapon shielding. Maybe it makes it more viable. Return fire bullet resistance increased from 6% to 8%. Maybe one day we'll go back to the former glory of everyone buying return fire, but this probably isn't a big enough buff. It might make it a little bit more of an attractive option, but I don't know that it's crazy strong. Resto Locket no longer scales with spirit power. Instead it scales with boons. Probably makes it viable on characters that aren't spirit oriented. This item is pretty strong on spirit characters, but now it might be decent on some other characters as well. Guardian Ward cast range increased from 35 meters to 40 meters, and Divine Barrier's cast range increased from 35 to 40 meters. I think Guardian Ward and Divine Barrier are underbought. Guardian Ward's kind of a good item. Divine Barrier is really good at removing stuff that nothing else in the game can remove. Veilwalker, heal per boon increased from 3 to 4, and the duration increased from 6 to 7 seconds. This item was already really strong. I think not a lot of people were buying it. But, yeah, Veilwalker was already good for the characters that wanted it, and now it's even better. Sure. Healing Nova buffed, gets 6% ability range, and the heal per boon increased from 4.4 to 6. I don't think a lot of people were really buying Healing Boon with like or Healing Nova. With like a couple of exceptions that might make it a little more of an attractive option for, you know, your Kelvins and your McGinnises and those kinds of characters. Metal Skin, we got duration increase from 4 to 5. Man, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have shunned Metal Skin recently. But 5%, 1 extra second duration is kind of a big deal, so it might be a more attractive option. Counterspell duration reduced from 1 to 0.9, probably good. Counterspell is still really strong. Don't think it's really going to change it that much. Trophy collector buffs. Out of combat regen increased from 3.5 to 4, and the souls per minute increased from 23 to 25. So if we do a little bit of quick math on a calculator, because I can't do that in my head, that is 25 times 16. It's 400 souls per minute. 23 times 16 is 368 souls per minute. So at max souls, you're getting 32 more souls per minute. Pretty big deal. Oh, I could have just done 2 times 16. That would have been easier math. Oh well. Cheat death cooldown reduced from 100 seconds to 90 seconds. Cool item, still probably pretty niche. Not sure a lot of people buy it. Witchmail got a bit of a buff to the spirit power bonus. Some people, Witchmail seems really strong in very specific situations, and I don't know that changes it. Siphon Bullets max HP steal reduced from 55 to 35, and it scales per boon. 0.8. It's a lot of scaling per boon. I feel like Siphon Bullets is going to be like crazy strong. Oh, and the duration was reduced from 20 seconds to 70 seconds. 20 seconds to 17 seconds. It's going to be weaker early and stronger later. So if you're running like an IV build that rushes Siphon Bullets, you might want to wait a little bit. It's probably still okay, but it's not going to be as like an immediate crazy power spike as it was before. Inhibitor healing reduction increased and debuff duration increased. I don't think that Inhibitor has been particularly popular recently, so it's nice to see it getting some buffs. It's a pretty cool item, but it's hard to merit buying on a lot of characters, I think. Alright, we got spirit items last. Rusted Barrel, cast range increased from 23 to 28 meters, and bullet resistance reduction increased from -5 to -6%. Valve could give me this item and I still wouldn't buy it. I'm not buying this item, Valve. Keep buffing it. Still not going to buy it. Bullet Resist Shredder no longer grants 20% melee resist and instead grants bullet resistance. Kind of sad about this, honestly. There's not a lot of sources of melee resistance, and with how prominent melee is in a lot of games, it's kind of nice. Like, I was buying Bullet Resist Shredder on Paradox, and the melee resist is kind of nice, because a lot of the other options for melee resist are not something that I was interested in buying. A little bit of a bummer, but I mean, bullet resist is probably generically more useful. Cold Front damage reduced from 125 to 100. Totally deserved nerf. Cold Front is still probably buyable and good on lots of characters, but it reduces how strong it is like right when you buy it. If you buy this like 1600 right away, it's just 125 damage for free. It's kind of a lot. QSR bonus damage reduced from 60 to 55. Slight nerf, probably a good choice. Spirit Sap power reduction is increased from -18 to -24. Seems fine. I mean, Spirit Sap, the only people that I've seen buy Spirit Sap, it's just because they're going to buy Silence Wave later. Silence Wave is really good. The duration has got decreased a bit, but the width is increased, and the Spirit Power, so it's probably like net same-ish, still pretty good item. Torment Pulse cooldown reduced from 1.5 to 1.4. Cool. More Torment Pulse, probably a little bit better of an item, more compelling of a buy. It's probably a good change actually with because way back when they changed the cooldown from superior cooldown to only, so basically item cooldown and ability cooldown got split up. Torment Pulse kind of suffered quite a lot from that, from not being able to get the reduction in cooldown from superior cooldown. So it's probably good to bring that down a little bit. Might make it more playable. Decay cooldown reduced from 36 to 32, and the scaling increased from 0.0038 to 0.05. Oh wait, that's actually a big scaling increase. Decay might be playable again on some characters. Might be. That's a lot of spirit scaling increased, and the cooldown is only 32 seconds. We'll see. Decay was like, I think, basically nerfed into the floor because everybody was buying it, and I think no one buys it now, and so they're trying to bring it back into some kind of play. So we'll see if this is a big enough buff to get there. Magic Carpet Spirit Power increased from +10 to +14, and the speed is from 6 to 7, so you move a little faster, a little more spirit. Still, like, just kind of a meme item for the most part. Not really a lot of characters buy it besides, like, Mo and Krill. Maybe, like, meme Calico builds. Focus Lens has a cool change. So now it deals damage whenever the debuff is removed, rather than only on expiration. So for a while, basically until now, Focus Lens a lot of times was just like a did you buy debuff remover check, because if you did, then it's sort of a useless item. But now at least you get the damage when the debuff is removed. So it's at least a little bit more useful. This seems like a good change. Escalating exposure spirit resistance reduced from 20% to 70%, 17%. Good change. I mean, escalating exposure is a really strong item, and just gives you a lot of flat spirit res for no real reason. So I'm kind of glad they reduced that by a little bit. And then spirit burn got a little bit of a nerf for ability range reduction, and proc damage reduced from 120 to 110. Doesn't really change the most important. Like the proc damage is a little bit of a nerf, and the ability range is a little bit of a nerf, but like most people are buying it because of the 80% healing reduction. It's kind of mandatory in a lot of against a lot of team comps in at least 1 or 2 numbers. So overall, we got some decent balance changes. I think Shiv is going to be crazy. I think this rejuve change doesn't matter. This death timer thing is probably good for stopping the dying to tower. Do not go die to tower if you get a kill in lane. Just don't do that unless you have a very compelling reason to. I don't think it's probably worth it anymore. And there's some decent item changes. I think weakening headshot stocks are through the roof to the moon. Buy this item, it's great. What other items seemed pretty good here? Wheel Walker is great. Trophy Collector, if you're feeling up to it. Just a bit of a buff, probably doesn't make that much difference. Torment Pulse. The decay buff is like so much that it might be interesting to experiment with. Could be good, hard to say. And I think that about covers it. There's some really good changes here. I hope that you enjoyed the run through and a little bit of the analysis of what's going on and my experience with some of the stuff in comp already. If you liked the video, I would appreciate it if you leave a like. If you want to see more stuff like this in the future, you can always leave a subscription. I guess you don't really leave a subscription, you just subscribe. Regardless, would be awesome. I'm live on twitch.tv basically every weekday about 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern for at least 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm usually live again later at night for scrims and that kind of stuff. So if you want to see some competitive Deadlock, come hang out. We usually do solo queue in the morning, and then we do scrims and team stuff in the night. Would love to see you there. And until next time for another patch review or something similar, I will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.